Hey, what's up guys? Combat Critique here. In this video, I want to give my take on the future of this sport of slap fighting that has gotten a lot of popularity in recent times. So Dana White, who is the president of the UFC, announced his own version of slap fighting, which is called PowerSlap. So PowerSlap has received a lot of hatred in the past couple of weeks since its inception, and earlier it was on TV. Now it has been pulled off, and now it is on Rumble. So pretty soon, I think it will be off Rumble as well. And right now, it is approved, I think, in Nevada State Athletic Commission. That is the only commission that has approved Power Slap. I think in the future, if it gets a lot of heat, like it is getting already, Nevada might also back down, and then UFC will or Dana White will have no other option but to shut down this sport. Right now, I believe that Dana White is not accepting the fact that Power Slap is a disaster. He is promoting it like it's the next best thing after UFC to happen to him, and he's saying the numbers are great and all these things. But the fact that it is off TV and they have to do it on Rumble, and the fact that only Nevada State Athletic Commission has approved this sport tells us a lot. Now let's start with some of the problems that I have with Power Slap and the sport of slap fighting in general. So let's start with the cons. Number one, I have the risk of injury. So this is really the main point that everybody keeps talking about, because the sport is built around being viral on social media, on TikTok, on Instagram. So they really want people to get knocked out. That is the selling point. They want people to get knocked out because that is what becomes viral on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube. So they really don't really care about the health of these participants, of these so-called fighters. First of all, I don't think these guys are fighters, but if you call them fighters, there's really no concern for their health. The guy who is receiving the slap, this person does not get to defend himself at all. He has to keep his hands behind his back and just eat the punch. He cannot flinch, he cannot rotate his neck, he cannot tuck his chin, he cannot do anything. Just eat the punch, and you can imagine the amount of head trauma, the amount of concussions, CTE that these participants will get from slapping each other over 5, maybe 10 years a career. So the risk of injury is really high. Dana White often talks about that in boxing you get 200 to 300 punches in a fight landed on your face. That is true, that might be true, but the difference is in boxing you have ways, you have techniques, you have strategies to minimize getting hit on the head, and if you are skilled you can avoid the punches. Here there's nothing. The rules forbid you to avoid getting slapped. You have to get slapped, and you cannot tuck your chin, you cannot flinch, you cannot do anything, you just have to eat it. Now moving on to the second point, lack of strategy. So I don't think there's a lot of strategy involved in this. I don't think there's any strategy involved if you are defending. You just have to eat it. Dana White will disagree probably with me, but that's what I feel. If you are eating the punch, you really don't have any strategy. Just hope that the other guy doesn't land it properly. And if you are an attacker, then maybe there's some strategy as to what part of the palm should hit first and those things. But even then, I don't think there's a lot of strategy or skill element involved in this. It's a barbaric sport, like many people have said in the past. Now, moving on to the third point, which is the perception that it is a lowbrow activity. So, slap fighting, if you talk about this to the higher generations, the older people, they'll scoff at it. They don't really, I don't think they'll even follow this sport of slap fighting. It's only the younger generations who might be interested, but even then, I don't think this will become mainstream like boxing or MMA, because it is viewed as something that criminals or somebody, those people do, and I don't think it will get the widestream mainstream attention. Because of that, this sport will never really flourish, and it will run in underground, underground arenas, underground events, because it will be hard to sanction this sport because of the perception. And right now, Power Slap is sanctioned by Nevada, but in the future, I think even Nevada might back off if the, if people start, already people are giving a lot of heat to Dana White and PowerSlap, and if it continues, then even Nevada might back out. Fourth point is the negative cultural association. So again, this ties to the third point as well. So in a lot of cultures, especially in Asian cultures, in India, if you slap somebody even for fun or even as a joke, you can expect a fight to start at any moment, and these things are not at all taken lightly. Because of that, I think this cultural association, a lot of countries will not appreciate a sport like power slap or slap fighting. Now, moving to the last point, the potential for bias in judging. So, the power slap rules say that they are following a 10-point scoring system like they do in MMA and boxing. So, the judges will give the judges will score the bout based on how quickly the receiver recovers, and I see a lot of potential for subjectivity and bias in that. So how will you measure whether somebody has fully recovered, and how effective was the punch, how effective was the slap? So already the 10-point system gets a lot of heat in MMA. We see robberies happening all the time in boxing as well as MMA. In power slap, which is the rules of power slap or slap fighting are not really clear. So in that, I don't know how you will judge it on a 10-point scoring system. How will you determine whether a guy has recovered or not? What is his recovery time? All those things. I think there is a lot of scope, a lot of subjectivity, and because of that, we will expect a lot of robberies happening in power slap and slap fighting in general. So overall, I think they really need to work on these things, and I have an alternate. So Dana White, if you're watching this video, so Dana White, if you're watching this, you need to switch over to arm wrestling. I think arm wrestling is a much better sport. It has all the necessary ingredients to go viral on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, and it will get a lot of uh, attraction, while at the same time it will be not as controversial as power slap. So I'll give some points why I think this is a better choice than slap fighting. First of all, there's a lower risk of injury in arm wrestling. So in power slap, you have a lot of CTE head trauma happening, but here you don't really get knocked out. There's no chance of a head injury or you know CTE happening. The worst that can happen is you might get a bicep tear, or you might get elbow tendinitis, or you might blow out your shoulder. That's the only thing, or something to do with your wrist. That is all that can happen. There's no chance of getting a knockout or getting concussed. Because of that, this becomes a much safer sport. Then second point is it requires strategy and technique. So people who are following this sport for a decent amount of time will know that it is not just pure brute force strength that is required to win a arm wrestling match. You also need to be good on your technique and have a right strategy. So if you follow this guy right here, this guy is considered the GOAT of arm wrestling. He is Devon Larratt, and in many videos he is seen as saying that arm wrestling has more to do with strategy than just lifting weights with your arms and making the arm strong. So in power slap, I don't think there's any technique or strategy involved, whereas here there is an element of technique, and it is not that the stronger fighter or the stronger guy will always win. Sometimes a skinnier fighter might beat a bigger guy just because his technique or strategy is better. Third point, more mainstream appeal. So I think all of us have arm wrestled in the past. Even if you don't know the rules, even if you know nothing, you have probably arm wrestled. And this is across every country in all the cultures. It's a uniform thing. It's not like power slap or slap fighting, where if you are slap fighting with anybody, it's probably because you're just fighting. You can have no beef with the person and still arm wrestle him for fun. Now, coming to the fourth and a really important point is this is more inclusive than power slap. I believe you can get 60 plus to compete with each other. You can get women to compete with each other. You can get kids to compete with each other, because it's such a safe sport and you don't really need to have a grudge to arm wrestle somebody. You can invite people of all ages, all demographics, everybody, kids, teenagers, women, senior citizens, everybody can do this. And because it is safer, I think the commission will be willing to approve a fight between, let's say, two senior citizens like in this photo. So you can really make it all inclusive. I think this is much better than PowerSlap, where PowerSlap, I don't think they'll ever approve. Even Nevada Athletic Commission will not approve it for senior citizens. So this is a huge bonus for arm wrestling. Now, fifth point is it is less controversial. So because it has a lower risk of injury, it requires technique and strategy. I think it will be more accepted by the masses. It will be less controversial if Dana White announces that in the future they're gonna do an arm wrestling league. I don't think anybody will have an objection. I don't think any health professional or anyone will come out and say that this is unsafe, this is not good because of the nature and the lower risk of injury. I think it will be less controversial than PowerSlap and Dana White will get much more acceptance.